Greetings. This is Ani Sekarba, Professional Development Lead Teacher at Green Valley Academy. Welcome to Step 4 of the DataWise process, digging into student data.
Would have been formed in their mind prior to reading the story to build suspense or set an expectation for the story. So that is what we basically did with this. And then we followed it up with additional lessons on how to. And so when we go back to reading stories again, right now we're in our argumentative unit, but when we go back to reading stories again, I'll use two other students' samples to sort of just one way of teaching how the paragraph structure is one of the things that we were doing.
And this was from the assignment, Letters from the Birmingham Jail, that reading?
No, we were actually reading, this is a quiz, so they had an option to do Letter from Birmingham Jail or the Murder Mystery of Macbeth. And the idea is for them not to read the text, but to determine just based on the title what they think the story may be about and what kinds of questions that title raises in their mind of what the actual story is going to be about. So they never ended up reading those stories.
GW did very well. So I really like this because it forces the students to do a bit of a survey. So basically, if you take a section of reading or of a chapter of a book, you can have the students kind of skim it. So the SQ3R is the first survey. So when we look at a section of the book, we look at the titles and the subsection. So we survey the section titles at the top. So you have the state, essential features of a state, theories of the origin, purposes of government, and then the whole section title is principles at the bottom. So what it forces a student to do is to now take those titles and create questions. So we use the basic forms typically is the who, what, when, where, why. And I try to tell them that the how and the why are your higher order questions. And we try to do those. What sometimes is kind of the default, but those are the ones that we prefer. So creating the questions typically isn't the hard part. On the back, you have to answer the questions that you created about the different sections in the book. So it's just a review tactic or note-taking. But the challenge always is, and on this one it's on the sheet, is the summary. Because what they typically do is they will take an answer from the top part and they will put 2 or 3 sentences as their summary. And so what I've had to do is, the challenge is to get them to use their own words as to what did you learn about this section. And so for Parker, he kind of did a combination of both of those. So he organized it. It looks like it actually is something that it really says, but he took all the titles in the survey, and then he combined the purposes of government. And he talks about, and the sentence kind of doesn't make sense at the end. So basically, he did what I told him not to do, which was to take something from the top and put it in the summary. So he basically kind of combined a bunch of stuff together and put a period at the end. So the challenge with the note-taking is the summary, getting them to give me 1 or 2 sentences of what they learned. So that's typically the challenge, but the good part is seeing their brains work when they come up with the questions, because a lot of times I try to tell them that the learnings happen when you ask questions. It's not about me talking, it's about the questioning that happens. So this is something that we use at the beginning of a section as a way to take notes, to get them, kind of writing and thinking. So.
It's funny though, with I know at one time we used to teach summary, and when I would go to my English department meetings, they would always speak about how the kids have such a hard time doing summarizing, because now we're trying to tell them to analyze stuff, but now they're summarizing rather than analyzing. But I like this SQ3R. I'm a really old-fashioned teacher. I like stuff like that we used when we were in school. I think it's very underrated. I really do. And I try to use as much of it as I can within the confines of the curriculum, but I really like this. I like assignments like this because it gets to the basic visceral parts that they just really don't know how to do. And sometimes I think we try to push them without giving them that background. And especially here, we have to build background because we cannot assume they already know how to do it, because a lot of them don't. So you have to go back and reteach and do corrective instruction and make sure they get this background. Then you can take them to a higher level once they know how to do these skills. So I like this assignment.
I love this assignment. I'm just wondering, I'm certainly gonna use it.
Yes.
I'm always
Pay
taking
it
something
up,
from
pay it
Ms.
forward.
Bando. Always taking something from Ms. Bay, but I'm definitely going to use it. But I'm just wondering, how can we all use something like this so that this, because we all kind of teach the same kids and students, excuse me. And so if it's something that Ms. Bay is using and I'm using and Mr. Marshall is using, Mr. Awa is using, then they're getting a lot of practice with these same skills, because I'm finding that the question part is the part that I really want them to be able to focus on. Like if you can break down that title and know what is expected of you, if you can generate a list of questions based on what the assignment is asking you to do, then as you begin to read it, your mind becomes more focused on. So I know it can be used in mine.
Yeah, I could do
Is
that.
that-
You
is
could
there
do
a
like
way
the
that-
vocabulary map where you have them like draw an image of something. I don't know. I don't know if you draw bacteria. I don't know, an atom or cell, something.
You can. I've done it more so with parts of the cell.
Okay.
And it was suggested to me by a student that instead of just drawing it, they find images on the computer. And I said, that was a good idea. So I went from the old fashioned to doing something using more technology, but it still did the same thing. The goal was, if you see this on the test and they just show you the image, you gotta be able to recognize the image.
And how you could break it down, so you could do where they would do a PowerPoint or a Google slide, and they can come up with the image, define it in their own words, use it in a sentence, and then and I want to basically steal what and I'm going to try to use it this week about the 6-word story.
Yes.
So they would have to explain it in 6 words or less, or something, you know. So
or just 6 words.
6 words. So something where they are forced to be creative in communicating. So if no one knew anything about this, how would you communicate?
Right.
Oh, I like
There are 2 good things that y'all said. One, I love that the use of technology, Mr. Marshall, and I know Mr. Libby will love that too, is taking something like this and then adding technology to it, but not haphazardly, not like, oh, I just want to use technology for something, actually using it after you've put the basic down, and then take it to that other level with the technology. And also, the questions that you're having them formulate. I see one says, explain the theory. That's Bloom's taxonomy 101.
Yeah, I came up with that one.
That was perfect.
But
well,
it was still.
Still, that's what I'm saying. Like, that shows that, hey, Ms. Goldring and I, yes, we have been successful. Use Bloom taxonomy. And I know Mr. Libby will love that one too.
Examining student work helps to challenge many assumptions. Assumptions about what students can and cannot do, about which students can do what, and about why students are or are not able to do something. First, you want a clear understanding about the student learning problem. Second, the teacher has to believe that students are capable of doing something different. And lastly, solutions for the problem will require changes in what teachers do on a daily basis.